Hi guys, my name is John Holland and I own Holland Canine Services. On top of being a pet dog trainer, I am also a service dog trainer. Service dog training is something that's near and dear to me because I myself am also disabled and I understand the importance of a service dog in the lives of people with disabilities, whether that be emotional disabilities or physical disabilities like mine. Uh, there is, though, a question around the difference between a service dog, a therapy dog, and an emotional support dog. There are three classifications, and most people don't really understand the difference. So we're going to start out with therapy dog. A therapy dog is a dog that's trained to provide comfort and support to someone other than their handler. For instance, if I take my dog to hospice so that the patients there can pet a dog and that brings a little bit of joy to their life, that is a therapy dog. Therapy dogs are not protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act. They do wonderful things in the community, but they are not protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act. They do not have public access. They do not have the right to go into places that do not allow dogs, unless they've been invited by that organization, such as a hospital, to participate in their therapy dog program. They're not allowed into restaurants and things like that where dogs would normally be prohibited. These dogs are specially trained in obedience and socialization to provide comfort to someone other than their handler. These dogs are very well trained in obedience. They should all know sit, stay, down, come, and heel, drop it, leave it, and a wide variety of commands. Like I've taught dogs to pray with someone, where they put their little paws up and they bow their head. I've taught dogs to do that. I've taught dogs to just sit and be petted, to lay down with a child, to get up on things, to get off of things. The big requirement for a service dog, for a therapy dog, is that they are very well trained and very well socialized, so that they're not very skittish, they're not afraid of things, they don't take things off the floor, they're not mouthy. They're just super friendly, laid-back dogs. Any dog can be a therapy dog if it has the right temperament. There is not a breed requirement when it comes to therapy dogs. The next step is an emotional support dog. Emotional support dogs are also not protected by the Americans with Disabilities Act. Now, there's going to be a fine line, and we'll talk about emotional support versus service dog in just a minute. But emotional support dogs are designed or are trained to provide comfort to their handlers. They are not granted public access in all situations. They are allowed to fly on airplanes and occasionally, I think, in hospitals. Emotional support is one of those very gray areas that I feel like needs to be firmed up a lot more. And then what I specialize in is service dogs. So I train service dogs in a wide variety of tasks, whether it be physical assistance like bracing someone who has balance issues, opening and closing doors, retrieval, pulling a wheelchair, opening doors, opening cabinets, you name it, I've trained it over the years. Now, service dogs are protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act. The requirement for a service dog is that they have to provide a service to someone with a documented disability. Now, that can still be a little ambiguous in my opinion, because people that have emotional needs can also have a documented disability that is emotional. So if a person has an anxiety disorder or is bipolar or severe depression to the point to where they can't get out of bed, that is a documented disability. They would be excused from work, or school, a wide variety of things. They're on medication typically. They're seen by physicians as well as psychiatric professionals and therapists. But the way that I look at service when it comes to emotional needs is I also pair that dog to commands that they are physically doing something for their handler. They are providing a service for their handler. For instance, slowing a heart rate by applying therapeutic pressure, blocking, getting in someone's face, licking them whenever they're starting to show signs of anxiety. Because some people with high level anxiety issues can lose consciousness, they can become disoriented, they can black out. There's a wide variety of things that can happen to someone who has emotional disability. So I never refer to a service dog as an emotional support dog, even though I am using that dog for someone who has a emotional disability. It is still considered a service dog in my opinion, and I train service dogs for that very purpose. I always caution my clients to avoid saying things like, this is my emotional support dog, because it is not an emotional support dog if you have a documented disability and you're seeing a physician or some type of doctor for that, and especially if you're taking medication. Or if your symptoms are so high level that you run the risk of being hurt or hurting someone else. So let's talk about the requirements for a service animal. I've already said that they have to provide a service to someone with a documented disability, and it has to be a specific person. It can't be a group of people or just anybody. It has to be a specific person. For instance, my wife can't take my dog out in public and call it a service dog because that dog was not trained for her specifically. My wife doesn't have any disabilities. But I can't take somebody else's dog that's trained to pull a wheelchair and call it my service dog. It doesn't fall under the qualifications of a service animal. Now, speaking of qualifications for a service animal, let's be very clear about something. There is no national registry of service animals. It does not exist. There is no national recognized certification process for service dogs. You can train your own service dog as long as you can train it to a level that is sufficient and train it to provide a service to someone, to yourself, if you have a documented disability. Do I recommend that? Absolutely not. Now, there are people out there that have trained service dogs for themselves, and they have done a wonderful job. I don't think that everybody has the skill set to do that. If you are a trainer and you've got a large background in training or a vast background in training, then sure, you can train your own service animal. But if you don't have that capability, then you need to seek out a professional. Someone like myself or another service dog trainer that has experience doing public access tests, making sure that dog is safe in public and that it's not going to become skittish, it's not going to do damage, it's not going to hurt its handler. For instance, if a dog is pulling a wheelchair, that pull has to be controlled. You run the risk of flipping somebody out of a wheelchair or pulling them out of a wheelchair, dislocating a shoulder. Things like that can happen. So you need to make sure that your training is spot on and that you train in a variety of locations. So let me reiterate, there is no nationally recognized certification process for service animals, and there is no governing body other than the Americans with Disabilities Act. Now, it is a federal offense to claim to have a service animal that doesn't meet the qualifications of such thing. Doesn't meet the qualifications of a service dog. Some of the requirements for a service dog is that the dog has to be under voice command at all times. So if I tell a service dog to sit, it has to sit all the time. It can't be skittish in public. It can't be afraid of elevators or escalators or shopping carts. It takes a tremendous amount of time to socialize that dog so that it can handle all the distractions of the real world. And very few dogs that were even bred for it can actually do it. So please keep that in mind. Dogs that are service dogs have access to restaurants. They can't take things off the floor like French fries that fall on the floor. They can't sniff around. They can't go and greet strangers. They have to be under voice command at all times. And they need to be on leash as a hindrance to the person in a disability. Or with a disability. They also have to be desensitized to other animals. So they can't see a squirrel and take off. They can't, want to go say hi to the other dog when they're out in public. Those things cannot happen, and they have to be trained for. All these organizations out there that are trying to sell service dog certifications and documentation, that is a ripoff at best, and fraudulent in my opinion, because there is no certification process for service animals. It does not exist. There is no documentation required for a service animal. The only thing that someone can ask about a service animal is, number one, is it a service animal? And does it provide a service to someone with a documented disability? And what services does it provide? That is the only questions that someone can ask you about a service dog. There's a lot of myths out there that, you have to have a document showing that it's a service dog or some type of certification, or that your dog has to have a service dog vest on. Your dog doesn't even have to have a service dog vest on to be a service dog. Now, I am not saying go out here and get your lab and put a service dog vest on it and it's a service dog. I am not saying that. It is a federal offense to claim to have a service animal when in fact it is not a service animal. So if you don't have a documented disability, you can't have a service dog. If you do have a documented disability, that dog has to provide a service for you specifically, such as pulling a wheelchair, diabetic alert, opening doors, anything that would make life for someone with a documented disability a little bit easier. So I hope this video has helped explain the difference between an emotional support dog, a therapy dog, and a service dog. I'm hoping to do a series on how to train service dogs and some of the requirements that are out there for service animals. And just good practices. For instance, a dog should not shake off in a restaurant because that throws hair everywhere. Putting your dog's elimination on a cue so that your dog can go where you want them to go and not have accidents in public. Being able to eliminate on a variety of surfaces. Sometimes you can't find a patch of grass for your dog to go pee on. And then how to greet strangers and how to ignore strangers and merchandise in stores and in grocery stores. So I hope this video has helped. If you'd like to see more information about service dogs, please subscribe and like this video. Please subscribe. There'll be a link somewhere around me for a subscribe link, and a like is down there. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment and I will do the best I can to answer them. Thank you for watching and have a great day.